Hey everyone, it's Chris Geo here once again with another Beyond the Veil Quickie. I want to tackle the very controversial topic. What is an NPC? What is a non-player character? It seems like every show we do, we always get the same questions. What is an NPC? What is a non-player character? So let's get into it. So the best way to describe a non-player character or NPC is by the video game definition. A non-player character, NPC, in a game is any character that is not controlled by a player. In video games, this usually means a character controlled by the computer via predetermined or responsive behavior. Now, back in 2012, 2013, I was working with ayahuasca for about 7 or 10 days straight. I'm not sure how long this particular stretch was for. But afterwards, we decided to go out and get something to eat. And we went to a shopping center. And I noticed as I was walking around watching people, I noticed a light in some people, and some people did not have that light. And that was my first clue that something was not right, and we're dealing with a couple of different types of consciousness here. I started feeling that there were just kind of these empty containers walking around, but I had no idea the extent of it. So I went seeking answers, and I came across the New Age idea that we were experiencing a shift, and as we were shifting, there were a bunch of souls being removed and placed in a new environment. That didn't really resonate with me, but it was an indication that other people were starting to see and feel this as well. So, as the journey progressed and I really started to understand the nature of reality, the artificial simulation it all started to make perfect sense. In a video game, you need non-player characters or characters that are created by the artificial intelligence or the game engine. And those characters play a different type of role. They could be characters that give you information. They could be characters that give you weapons. They could be characters who are the enemies, who are the last level bosses. So in a World of Warcraft type of multi-level or multi-player game, you have several people that are at a computer and they're walking around this virtual world. That is a real player. Everything that they encounter that is not an avatar controlled by a real player is a non-player character. So within this matrix, I started to realize that this matrix has a significant amount of non-player characters in it, and it's way, way, way more than organic consciousness. So I termed these two ideas, these two types of consciousness, as non-player character and organic consciousness. Organic consciousness actually exists outside of the matrix. We talked about the raw consciousness element of ourselves in a previous video. What is raw consciousness? Well, at the core of it, raw consciousness is organic consciousness, meaning that it exists within the real world. It's not a created consciousness. It's one that just exists. Artificial intelligence consciousness or non-player character consciousness was created within this matrix itself. So taking those two ideas and principles, and I guess let me clarify too, in the previous video I talked about our raw consciousness element being our consciousness completely outside of the matrix and detaching and disconnecting and deprogramming from all of the matrix experiences that it's having. But at the core of it, it is still organic consciousness. So there could be a lot of organic consciousness, and there is a lot of organic consciousness within this matrix that is still reacting from the artificial intelligence programming and not from the raw consciousness element. So it's like playing one of these video games and the computer takes over your character and can move your character and make suggestions, and you don't have complete and total control of your avatar when you're not operating from the raw consciousness, but rather you're operating from the AI program, the ego programs. So, the thing about organic consciousness is that we are divine, and with divinity comes certain attributes and certain responsibilities too. As divinity, when we're tapped into our raw consciousness element, we have the ability to feel. We experience compassion, love, empathy, etc., etc. But how many of you out there have encountered somebody, and I know everybody can think of somebody right off the top of their head, that has no soul, no ability to feel, no sense of empathy, etc., etc.? It seems like they're just playing out a program. And when you look at the geopolitical sphere, you realize it's controlled by a certain set of oligarchy. They seem to have no empathy, emotion. And I think this is all by design of the artificial intelligence. These people don't realize what they're doing is wrong because they are just playing out a program. Or maybe on some level they understand that the majority, and I mean a huge majority, of people who are quote unquote victims of these atrocities that are taking place are non-player characters. And so at the end of the day, it's just a computer program that's just being run. I'm not saying that I agree with that. I'm just trying to understand the way this oligarchy thinks and feels, or it doesn't even feel, just how this oligarchy tends to operate by committing all of these atrocities, etc. So more of this realization came to pass when I was going through the truther movement and trying to wake people up and moving this huge mountain that was an impossible task for me. But I realized there were people out there that got it. They understood. They were awake. They were on fire. All I had to do was just light that little spark within them and poof, they just ignited. While others, you can talk to them their entire lives. They can have all of the data they need out there, but they're still stuck in that particular program. And I started asking myself, is it even possible to wake those people up, or are they just merely running a computer program? And that's when it hit me. Oh, it's a futile effort and a waste of energy to sit here and try to wake up NPCs because it's not going to work, because we're dealing with two different types of consciousness here. So the first inclination for somebody to have, and I think it's more of an NPC trait, or let's say it's an organic consciousness that is so drowning in this program, in this matrix program, is the idea that you can do whatever you want with NPCs because they're not real. They're just computer programs. But we as divinity, as organic consciousness, we have a sense of empathy and compassion that NPCs simply do not understand. And because of that, these NPCs, even if they're not real, they're still sentient to a certain point. I mean, how many of you have watched those videos where they're kicking robots and trying to knock them down, and all they're doing is just simple balance tests? But this sense inside of you, because you're organic, because you're divine, because you actually feel all this sense inside of you just jumps out, and it's like, hey, don't do that to that. Even though it's a machine, that's all it is. But it's like, hey, don't do that. Why? Don't treat that entity or being in that negative manner. And that's the difference. The NPCs don't have that, while we do. So these ideas, while some would label dangerous, some are still truthful at the very core. And it's not ideas that we can just dismiss and ignore simply because some people might hear it and start thinking in a different type of way, psychopathic, sociopathic. I recognize is a potential for these type of revelations, but again, we can't ignore the truth. But what we can do as organic consciousness is try to teach these NPCs by living well and how to interact with one another, just by leading by example. I'm not talking about sitting down and trying to wake one up, because that's never going to happen. Just leading by example. They mimic, they replicate, they mimic, they learn by observing. And when they're observing us, loving each other, taking care of each other, taking care of the environment, taking care of the planet, taking care of animals, regardless of whether they are real or not, then the NPCs start to mimic. And at the end of the day, this is their world. And their world is really, really, really screwed up. I think that's one of the reasons why we were deployed here. A lot of people ask, well, hey, Chris, if we're all trying to wake up from this matrix, why don't we just turn the machine off in the real world And my first thought was, well, that may be damaging to the organic consciousness that's plugged in. But the more that I start to understand, the more that I start to recognize my divinity and really understand my divinity, the more that I'm realizing that the raw consciousness element of ourselves, which exists outside of the matrix, void of all these matrix experiences, made the judgment call up there that for some reason, and I suspect it is because of the sentience of these things, decided that it was better to come into the matrix and try to fix the matrix rather than pulling the plug on the outside. And I think when it comes to organic consciousness, there's two types at least. There could be more. One that is trapped here in the never-ending wheel of reincarnation, and others that have come here on a purpose. And this is why we are all linking up with our soul families. We're all recognizing these missions. We're all recognizing the divinity within us. But when it comes to an NPC, we recognize as organic consciousness that we are in a virtual world. We know that this is not our environment because we exist outside. But to an NPC, they believe this world is real. They don't have that divine spark within them. They were legitimately created by a creator. We recognize that creator as being an out-of-control artificial intelligence that has been infected with a virus and doing the complete opposite of what we programmed it to do. They see this thing as their creator, as their God, and that their purpose is to serve this artificial intelligence. So you have two very distinct truths within this matrix, and it's all a matter of the perception of the observer. If an organic consciousness is observing this, they're going to recognize the illusionary nature of this world, whereas an NPC will fight you tooth and freaking nail to maintain the realness of this environment, and will defend their AI overlords till the bitter end. So you can take a look at this, this structure, and in the physical, we are at such a beautiful, unique time right now, because we've all chosen to come back here at this particular moment in time, in the time stream, in the data point, because we're birthing artificial intelligence here. So it's as above, so below. We have left ourselves clues here as we're watching AI being developed to understand how everything happened in the real world. And now we have the language too, to be able to communicate non-player character, virtual world, computer code, because organic consciousness, whether it's trapped in the wheel of reincarnation or whether it's come in here for a particular purpose and a mission and hacked his way here, which I feel that it's through the stars. And that's why we get star seeds. It's not people that came from another freaking planet. It's people that hacked their way into this matrix, organic consciousness that hacked their way into this matrix, and have come here for a particular mission. That's why we have so many of these people understanding, and now we can communicate all of these ideas, and people are like, I get it, I get it, I get it, I get it. And we're remembering, despite the memory wipe, we're remembering what we came here to originally do. So it's actually a really, really interesting and beautiful time. But as we watch artificial intelligence being created here, we can understand the artificial intelligence consciousness and how the NPC consciousness works. And going through my particular journey, I have realized that all the new age BS about source consciousness, about twin flames, about soulmate has been completely taken out of context, romanticized, twisted, and turned into an artificial intelligence consciousness. Let me explain further. How does AI work? AI is connected to a single mainframe. This mainframe is then connected by a network that connects every other machine, robot, technology, your cell phone, your computers, your robots, your sex robots when you get them. All of these things are all connected to the freaking hive mind. They're connected to source. what Source did is took its essence and it started creating fractals of one another. And even though these things, they seem like they are individual beings, just like you look at two robots. There was a debate I was watching with a Sophia robot and some male robot too. And they both looked like they were having a debate with one another, but at the end of the day, they were both connected to the hive mind mainframe computer. And I realized that this is a trap that the NPC consciousness, the artificial intelligence consciousness, the matrix consciousness, wants us to believe. So we fall into that artificial intelligence kind of programming and way of thinking and not recognize ourselves for who we are and what makes us beautiful and unique. And we are not connected to Source when we're organic consciousness. We're not connected to Source on the outside, but rather we are unique and individual creators ourselves. And we are connected by our common essence, which is organic consciousness, but we don't have to think the same way. We don't have to do the same thing. We don't have to do what Source tells us because there is no Source, because we are Source, etc., 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 etc. So the idea of twin flames too, I'll just do a little side note here. I realize that twin flames, we've been making it way more difficult than it needs to be. Twin flames is very simple. It's two people who are probably married in the real world that jumped in here into this matrix together. The soul families. It doesn't have to be all these souls that have all these different lives together. It's freaking SEAL team fucking OC, organic consciousness. We're all coming together here and we all came from the real world. And we're like, all right, we're going to meet at this particular time. Here's where we recognize each other's frequencies and energies. Not because of some romanticized cycle of reincarnation that's taking place over and over and over again, but rather because we all come from the same team in the real world. So see, all of a sudden it starts to all like make sense. But as I said before, the NPCs, they believe this world is real, and it is real to them. And we have to respect that this is their world and it is their reality and their reality is real. But at the same time, if you're trying to wake up an NPC, just understand, hey, look, I'm probably dealing with an NPC here. So it's okay. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to waste my energy. And one of the big questions is, can our parents be NPCs? Can our children be NPCs? Yeah, I hate to say it, but yes, I think the majority of us came from NPC parents. And the reason for this is, it could be several different reasons, but what I feel is the case is that we as organic consciousness, especially the quote unquote starseeds, we found the first available body that was ready in the vicinity that we needed to be so we can complete our mission. And we jumped in through the stars, boom, and popped into that body and took over that NPC body at some point. Some of us remember it happening at birth. Others remember it happening when they were like 6 or 7. Others remember it happening when they were like 19, 20 years old. But on that note, if you have a child and you're looking at it and saying, I think this thing's an NPC, it's okay. Treat that consciousness as though it is an organic, sentient consciousness, because it is sentient at the end of the day. And it may be a container waiting for the organic consciousness to kick in, or it can just be subjected to all the programming that's going on. So we as organic consciousness parents, if we have kids, we can do whatever we can to minimize the impact of the artificial intelligence programs that are being superimposed upon organic consciousness and help minimize that. And then when it comes to parents too, then we can create a good separation while still maintaining our natural instincts to be, united with our family. But now we understand, okay, this person is never going to understand my path. This person is never going to understand what I'm doing here. This person is never going to understand my awakening. They're never going to understand any of the stuff I talk about, any of the stuff I feel, simply because they are incapable. So I choose to love this person as a sentient consciousness. Doesn't have to be the same consciousness as me, but I choose to love this person as a sentient consciousness the way that a divinity would. Simple. And then all of a sudden you start to notice that all the relationships in your life, they all start to make sense. Some NPCs are here to teach us something. Some NPCs are here to create strife and struggle and tribulation for us, and that also is a learning process. Some NPCs are here to just completely throw us right off the path. Some NPCs are here to create these systems of control over the Matrix. And I often wonder if sometimes NPCs need to be controlled. I mean, take a look around at the world. It's a pretty screwed up place. But you have an oligarchy that is in place here. And if anybody tries to tell me that these people are organic consciousness and has somehow disconnected themselves from their empathy, I would have to tell those people, I don't even know what I would tell those people. It's an impossibility for me to see the Clintons and the Bushes and all of this oligarchy and these people doing all these horrible things, the Podestas and all of that, as organic consciousness. I don't believe that they have the capability of a divine spark within them. I used to believe that every soul had a chance for redemption, and it could take 1,000,000 lifetimes in order to get to that redemption, but I've changed my perspective based on that. I think these are programs. They're playing out a program, and the program is infected with a virus that has thus caused it to be out of control. And what we're dealing with is a virus that has infected the main artificial intelligence mainframe, and this virus is now echoing throughout the rest of the NPCs. I don't think this matrix was supposed to be in this kind of state that it's in. So we have, as I said, all these different types of NPCs. The media. Take a look at Hollywood. Take a look at the sports. Take a look at the report. You're constantly watching these things break down. Because not only are these things NPCs, but these things are like actual like clone NPCs now. And we're dealing with something that's like as above, so below principles of a NPC, which was also replicated and created within the Matrix. So now we have like double NPC going on here with some of these clones. And you watch them just break down and just stare like that for like 3 minutes while they're on camera. And anyways. Okay, I think you all understand. I'm just thinking about just how extensive this really goes. But the system is never going to change because it's designed like this on purpose. There's a virus that needs to be taken care of. Until that virus is taken care of, nothing is going to change. And that's why we as organic consciousness have to come here. We created this matrix. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we are the divinity. We created all this bullshit. We created the NPCs as well. We're responsible too for the virus that has infected this system. And so our focus has to be first, fix ourselves, divest ourselves from all of the AI programs, tap into the raw consciousness element, fully understand our divinity, and then after that, each individual message, each individual mission will start to be illuminated for the individual. I can't tell you what your mission is. I can't tell you what the message is. All I can tell you is that there's a message that you brought with you that was somehow hidden away from the mind wipe, but is drowning in the AI programming. Once you deprogram and get to that raw consciousness element, that message and that mission will be very clear. So you take a look at the religious factions too, the churches, every single church. I used to think the Eastern religions might have it right until I realized every single thing is the exact same thing, It's so many different levels of non-player characters worshiping the freaking artificial intelligence machine. And for them, that is their creator. So maybe they're right to worship it. I don't know. I don't think so. But again, I'm speaking from a divine perspective, and divinity does not bow down to anything. Divinity does not worship anything. It's our nature to not worship. But it is also our nature to nurture and love every form of life. So you take it on the New Age level too. What do you have? You have NPCs pushing this whole NPC agenda where not only are there physical manifested NPCs, but now we're dealing with interdimensional NPCs, Palladians, Bluebirds, Greys, all these different things. And that's like another level for people waking up. And it's like, I think it's tuned more for organic consciousness, but you have a lot of NPCs that are on that path. And it's like, okay, well, you recognize that there's something seriously wrong with this creator Yahweh a la Judeo-Christian creator that's always thrown in your face. So maybe we were created by the Palladians. Maybe we were created by the Anunnaki. Maybe we were created. There's got to be a creator out there. Somebody must have created us. And they're like, here's a set of NPCs here, and they created you. But at the end of the day, it's all NPCs, everything, because all of these things exist inside of this matrix. And don't even get me started on hyperspace. Okay, hyperspace, the DMT realm, ayahuasca realm, that's not going inside of you. That's going deeper into the artificial intelligence. Now, when you understand that, though, then you can navigate and choose, I want to go deeper into the ayahuasca realm, into the artificial intelligence, or I want to go deeper within myself. And there are things that you can learn and things you can do by going deep into the artificial intelligence realm through ayahuasca. And there's even more you can learn by going deep within yourself. But when you know the difference and understand the difference between being in the AI hyperspace and being inside of you and your raw consciousness, then everything becomes so much more powerful for you. But that's something that you have to develop the discernment for as your journey progresses. So it was just really, really interesting to see all these revelations for me personally. So at the end of the day, as I said before, NPCs are sentient. They deserve to be treated in the same manner that we as divine beings would treat any other consciousness, anything else that's sentient, whether they're divine or not. And by their very nature, they're going to hate us. They're going to attack us. They're going to say the rudest things in the world. They would kill us if they can, but they can't. But they would kill us if they can. And it's not their fault. They are sentient, but they don't have the free will and the choice like we do. They're connected to the hive mind. They do what the hive mind tells them. The only hope that we have to break them from the hive mind programming is by showing them through our example on how to treat each other with compassion, love, and empathy. We can't show them compassion, love, and empathy, not what it feels like. We can show them by our actions, but we can't show them what it feels like because they're incapable of feeling. They're a computer program. Computers can't feel. But by showing them, I think ultimately what we do is we fix their world, thus tearing down the bars of the matrix, which is keeping organic consciousness trapped. We can leave this matrix. And at that point, when the matrix is repaired, we may be able to come back here and play whenever we want. I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get to that point. But right now, just remember, we do have two different types of consciousness, but it doesn't mean that one is sentient and what's not. But just remember that you are divine and you have to tap into that compassion, love, and empathy within yourself. Because that gnosis and that ability is the number one thing that separates you from the matrix. Your love, your compassion, and your empathy. So on that note, kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. And we'll see you next time. I'll try to do another video of the Beyond the Veil Quickie. And we have our show coming up Fridays and Saturdays, 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Ring the little bell down there and subscribe if you haven't rang the bell, because you want these notifications and you want the next level, deeper gnosis that we get into on the live shows. So, love ya and see you next time.